Chapter 361 Dustless Alchemist. After a long journey of 7 days, Su Zimo finally arrived at the location of Dragon City. From a distance, the construction of this city was truly vast and awe-inspiring. 9 giant dragons soared into the sky, and where their heads gathered, a blue orb emitted a dazzling light. This was the shape of the entire city. As for the meaning behind the 9 dragons and the blue orb, the ruler of Dragon City had never explained it. So many people later speculated in secret. It could be 9 dragons playing with a pearl, or perhaps a dragon god battle. Standing at the base of Dragon City, the golden bricks and purple tiles, and the heavy city walls carried an ancient and profound historical aura. Every dragon god sculpted on the outskirts of the city looked lifelike, almost as if they truly existed. They seemed to be watching everyone who entered the city. There was even a faint pressure of dragon might suppressing the area. Su Zimo walked into the city. As a port city managing the endless sky sea, and the closest city to the eastern and northern continents, the prosperity of Dragon City was easy to imagine. Crowds of people walked along the main streets of the city. Su Zimo wasn't someone who liked to join the crowds. He came to Dragon City for a specific purpose. The materials for chaos to advance into the immortal realm were already prepared. The refining of the bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill was now urgent. The method to refine this pill had already been lost. Even if the 3rd Grand Elder of the true martial sacred ground, a master alchemist, were to try, he wouldn't be fully confident. And there was only one set of materials. Su Zimo couldn't afford a second failure. So he had to find someone who could refine the pill successfully in one try. Speaking of this, one had to mention the creator of the bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill. At the beginning of the primordial heartlands, the concept of pills didn't exist. Until later, a man named Alchemy Sage appeared. He established the system of alchemy and created the profession of the alchemist, which became both indispensable and prestigious. The existence of alchemists led humans to discover with amazement that herbs could be refined into pills. Not only did this preserve their medicinal properties, but also allowed humans to absorb them more effectively. More importantly, different herbs combined could produce pills with different effects. This opened a new door to the world for early humans still groping their way forward. From then on, an alchemy craze swept across the entire primordial heartlands. All kinds of alchemists emerged one after another. Some pursued fame and fortune. Others were genuinely passionate about the creation of pills. In the years that followed, countless alchemists brought their own creations to enrich the system. More and more legendary predecessors were remembered. Among them, one called the Dustless Alchemist pondered a question. Are pills really only for humans to take? He believed pills were suitable for all races. So he went against the norm and began creating pills for demonic beasts to consume. From then on, all kinds of beast-related pills were created by his hand. What truly made him famous was this very bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill. A pill that helped demonic beasts advance to the immortal realm and increased their chances of success. It didn't just cause a stir among humans, even more so among the beast race. Saying it shook the entire demon race would not be an exaggeration. The Dustless Alchemist wasn't an ancient figure. He spent his entire life refining pills. The bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill was a divine pill he developed only in the past 1,000 years. Because the pill had only recently appeared, and very few people could actually refine it, that was exactly the dilemma Su Zimo faced now. Walking into the main streets of Dragon City, Su Zimo first looked for an inn. Because there were so many people coming and going in Dragon City, Su Zimo had to visit several inns before finally finding a room. The whereabouts of the Dustless Alchemist were always a mystery. He focused on refining pills, paying little attention to the world, not seeking fame or fortune. But in his previous life, Su Zimo had heard that the Dustless Alchemist had once appeared in Dragon City. Later, many high-ranking members of the beast race came forward, seeking him to refine pills. The biggest pill store in Dragon City was the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. It was founded by the ruling dragon clan of Dragon City. Inside, there were pills, divine weapons, secret techniques, all kinds of rare treasures. And the prices were very reasonable. This massive building accounted for nearly 60% of Dragon City's business. When Su Zimo entered the Myriad Treasures Pavilion, the interior design wasn't luxurious. Instead, it had a simple and elegant style. The first floor of the pavilion was vast, with all sorts of items displayed in glass counters and divided into various sections. Because there were just too many people on the first floor, no one came over to ask Su Zimo anything. He was happy to explore the first floor freely. After walking for a while, he noticed a commotion at a counter up ahead. The noise was loud, just short of a fight. Curious, Su Zimo walked over to take a look. He saw a blue-robed youth and a servant in green clothing. The youth glared angrily at the servant and said, "I clearly saw this dragon bone grass first. Why should I give it to you? So just because you looked at it means it's yours? You didn't even say you were buying it. What now?" The servant snorted. "I was asking about the price. You're going too far." The youth said angrily, his face flushed. "What's going on?" At that moment, the crowd parted as a fat man with a big belly, followed by several Myriad Treasures Pavilion guards, walked in. "Who dares make trouble in my Myriad Treasures Pavilion?" The fat man wore a blue robe and was already sweating after just a few steps. He had a tiny mustache and narrow eyes that looked like slits. When he arrived, the servant quickly stepped forward with a flattering smile. "Manager Long, it's me. What's the argument about?" The fat man looked at the two of them and asked calmly. He seemed to know the servant and nodded slightly. "I'm here on behalf of Alchemist Juan to buy herbs. I had my eye on this dragonbone grass. Then this random brat tried to take it from me," the servant quickly explained. At the end, he glanced at the youth and gave a cold snort. The youth's face turned red with anger and he was about to argue, but the fat man waved his hand. He said to the servant, "All right, you take the dragonbone grass. This matter ends here. Don't cause trouble here again." The servant nodded and smiled. Of course. "This isn't fair," the youth shouted, eyes turning red, clearly upset at the scene. "Young man, I'm doing this for your own good." Manager Long turned and gave the youth a calm look, then asked, "Do you want to live, or do you want fairness?" Hearing this, the youth froze on the spot. Chapter 362, Conflict at Myriad Treasures Pavilion. He didn't know who this alchemist Juan the servant mentioned was, but judging by the tone, the person clearly wasn't simple. Though he felt indignant, the young man fell silent. He knew his own status wasn't particularly high. Seeing this, the servant snorted arrogantly and turned to look for other herbs. Su Zimo chuckled lightly as he watched the servant walk away. Alchemist Juan. I wonder if it's the same person I remember. To go from the first to the second floor of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion, one needed a silver token. This token was only granted after spending a certain amount of spirit stones on the first floor. After paying 500 spirit stones, Su Zimo followed the servant into the second floor of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. Once inside, the servant, clearly familiar with the place, walked straight to a counter. He said to the attendant in front of him, "Give me 3 stalks of purple heartgrass." "Wait, I'll take all of this purple heartgrass." Su Zimo stepped forward and placed 100 spirit stones on the counter. The attendant looked at Su Zimo with some hesitation. "What are you doing?" The servant glared coldly at Su Zimo. "I asked for these first. What's that got to do with me?" Su Zimo replied calmly. "You didn't pay, so they don't belong to you. Kid, I suggest you back off," the servant said coldly. "These herbs are for Alchemist Juan." "What kind of bullshit Alchemist Juan? I need this purple heartgrass today no matter what," Su Zimo said disdainfully. "If he's that important, tell him to come talk to me. Do you think someone like you can just see Alchemist Juan?" The servant sneered. "You must be new here. Never heard of Alchemist Juan's name in Dragon City." While the two were arguing, Manager Long from earlier came up from the first floor. "What's going on now?" he asked impatiently, frowning as he walked over. The attendant quickly went over and explained the situation. "This guest looks unfamiliar." Manager Long looked at Su Zimo and asked mildly, "Doesn't matter who I am. I'm getting that purple heartgrass today, Su Zimo replied indifferently. Sorry, but we can't sell it to you. Manager Long shook his head. He said, that herb was reserved in advance by Alchemist Wan. Don't care, didn't ask. You got two choices, Su Zimo said calmly. Either you give me the purple heartgrass, or I tear this whole place down. Hearing this, the servant sneered. Manager Long narrowed his eyes and said, It's been a long time since anyone dared speak to the Dragon Clan like that. You'd better apologize and make me satisfied. Otherwise, you're not leaving this pavilion today. Su Zimo didn't reply. He just chuckled and raised his foot, then kicked Manager Long directly. Spirit force surged around him. The moment his foot touched Manager Long, the latter realized what was happening. With a loud boom, waves of energy rippled from the impact. Manager Long's body was sent flying. How dare you cause trouble in the Myriad Treasures Pavilion? Manager Long shouted angrily as he stood up. Then he crushed the jade pendant at his waist. The space in front of them rippled, and an old man tore through space and descended. The old man wore a green robe, and both sides of his hair were white. An Imperial Meridian Realm aura surrounded him, and the back of his robe was embroidered with a dark green dragon. Pavilion Master Long. Manager Long quickly greeted the elder. An intruder? The old man's eyes scanned the second floor, finally landing on Su Zimo. He couldn't see through this young man at all. Someone is causing trouble. Manager Long pointed at Su Zimo. Who are you? The old man asked Su Zimo calmly. Su Zimo smiled and took out the token of the Holy Son of the true martial sacred ground. The old man's expression changed the moment he saw the token. He studied it carefully, then respectfully handed it back. So it's the Holy Son of the sacred ground. Dragon City welcomes you. If we failed to receive you properly, please forgive us, the old man said quickly. The fear left behind by the true martial sacred ground was something the Dragon Clan still hadn't forgotten. Back when Grand Emperor Jinwu ushered in a new era, the Dragon Clan were made to serve as mere half-beast slaves. When the tide of that great era swept in, all resistance was meaningless. The beast race suffered heavy losses during that upheaval. The Dragon Clan nearly went extinct. It was only after barely surviving and many generations of development that they managed to rise again. Hearing the old man's words, both Manager Long and the servant were left speechless. The Holy Son of the true martial sacred ground. It was something neither of them had ever imagined. My apologies, Holy Son. I failed to recognize you. Manager Long quickly apologized. Pack up the purple heartgrass for me. Su Zimo turned to the servant. Then said calmly, Now, can you take me to see Alchemist Wan? But my master rarely meets guests, the servant replied with some hesitation. That's irrelevant. I'm meeting him whether he likes it or not, Su Zimo answered. The servant paused for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. Leaving the Myriad Treasures Pavilion with the servant, Su Zimo was led through a hidden alley. Alchemist Wan was renowned in Dragon City. Everyone in the city knew a great alchemist lived here, but in truth few had ever seen him. As a master alchemist, many begged for him to refine pills. But Alchemist Wan was extremely low-key. He rarely refined pills and was more interested in creating new pill formulas. After winding through several turns, they finally stopped in front of a secluded courtyard. Before even entering, the scent of pills had already wafted out. The fragrance was thick. The servant took a deep breath and said, Looks like Alchemist Wan is in a good mood today. The two of them pushed the door open and entered. At the center of the courtyard stood more than 10 alchemy furnaces. Each one was wrapped in blazing flames. Above the furnaces, several round and translucent pills floated. At the center, a man in a gray robe, hair messy and face dirty, stood. He was controlling all of these furnaces. One man managing over 10 furnaces with ease, it looked completely effortless. Su Zimo and the servant's arrival didn't even seem to register. It was as if, in the man's eyes, only the furnaces and the pills existed. Chapter 363, Blood Dragon Bats. "Master, I'm back," the servant respectfully said as he walked up to Alchemist Juan. Alchemist Juan nodded slightly and didn't say much. "Master, someone outside wants to see you," the servant added. "Not seeing anyone. Tell him to leave." Alchemist Juan waved his sleeve impatiently. "Can't you see I'm refining pills?" The servant turned around and looked at Su Zimo with a troubled expression. "Alchemist Juan, you're being too serious. I'm just here to ask you about someone," Su Zimo said with a smile. "Who?" The old man looked up and asked. "Dustless Alchemist," Su Zimo answered clearly. "Never heard of him," Alchemist Juan replied, then crouched down again and continued observing the pills in front of him. "If you tell me the whereabouts of the Dustless Alchemist, all is well," Su Zimo said calmly. "If not, then the two of you will die here today." Alchemist Juan turned his head with a bit of surprise. "Are you threatening me? I know your influence. You say the word, and half the people in Dragon City would want to hunt me down," Su Zimo said casually. "But think about it. Dragon City means nothing to me, and I don't intend to make enemies." "I don't know any Dustless Alchemist," Alchemist Juan replied after a short silence. "Then who taught you your alchemy techniques?" Su Zimo asked. Another pause. "I taught myself," Alchemist Juan finally said. "All right then." Su Zimo raised his hand, spirit force gathering around him. "If you won't say, I'll just have to kill you." Seeing Su Zimo about to strike, the servant quickly spoke up. "You're looking for the Dustless Alchemist to refine a pill, right?" "So what?" Su Zimo asked indifferently. "Well, our Alchemist Juan is one of the top alchemists in Dragon City. Why not let him refine it for you?" the servant explained. "No, he's not good enough." Su Zimo shook his head. Upon hearing that, the previously unfazed Alchemist Juan slowly opened his eyes. "What pill can't I refine?" he asked flatly. "The bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill," Su Zimo replied clearly. Alchemist Juan's eyes flickered with surprise. He looked at Su Zimo in disbelief and asked, "Just the materials for that pill are out of reach for most people. Do you even have them?" "Only one set, so failure is not an option," Su Zimo replied. "Let me take a look," Alchemist Juan said. Without hesitation, Su Zimo took out the materials. Alchemist Juan glanced at the servant, then turned back to Su Zimo. "My master, the Dustless Alchemist, I can help you find him and ask him to refine the pill for you. But you have to promise me one thing." "Let's hear it," Su Zimo looked up and asked. 30 miles west of Dragon City, there's a blood dragon bat nest," Alchemist Juan said. "My master needs a blood-colored crystal stone from the center of that nest. Think of it as payment for the pill." "That's quite a request," Su Zimo thought for a moment and laughed. Blood dragon bats were a rare variant of the dragon race, and they lived in groups. No one really knew how many of them were inside the nest. That's why most people in Dragon City stayed away from it. There were also rumors that the bats sucked human blood. "That's the bottom line," Alchemist Juan said. "There are very few who can refine the pill you want. Even if you kill me, it would be useless if you don't agree." Su Zimo frowned slightly. He knew that the hardest people to deal with were those who didn't fear death, or those who welcomed it. "So that's your answer, huh, Dustless Alchemist?" Su Zimo suddenly turned and stared intently at the servant in green. The servant froze for a second, then grinned. "How did you figure it out?" "I guessed." Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. "Just answer me. Was it your intention?" "Yes," the Dustless Alchemist admitted after being exposed. "Bring me the blood dragon crystal stone, and I'll refine the pill for you." Su Zimo nodded slightly, then left the small courtyard. He soared into the sky, found the direction, and flew west. Actually, he had suspected the servant earlier. Alchemist Juan kept glancing at the servant while speaking, as if seeking his opinion. Given their master-disciple relationship, Su Zimo casually asked a question. Turns out the Dustless Alchemist was smart. He used his disciple Alchemist Juan as a front to study pill formulas in secret. No wonder no one could find him. Flying through the sky for about 10 minutes, Su Zimo arrived at his destination. It was a very secluded small valley. Weeds and vines grew wildly along one end of the canyon. Birds chirped on the green branches, and the place was eerily quiet with no sign of people. Su Zimo slowly closed his eyes. His god soul radiated subtle ripples, and spirit force spread around him. His soul perception was like an invisible scanner. As he closed his eyes, his soul swept over the surrounding area, covering several miles. That was the limit of his soul's range. Everything within those miles appeared clearly before him. Crystal clear. When Su Zimo opened his eyes again, an invisible aura surged from his body. He dove down toward the valley below. At the bottom, thick layers of climbing vines and ivy covered a cave that pierced straight through the canyon wall. Su Zimo slowly drew his saber, Shadow Tyrant, and sliced through all the vines at the entrance. The blade blazed with fierce flames, crackling and burning. As the entrance was revealed, sharp shrieks echoed from within. Then something shot out from the cave at an incredible speed. Su Zimo couldn't dodge in time, and the thing slammed into his saber. He felt a powerful force, forcing him several steps back. Staring ahead, he saw blood red fill half the sky. Su Zimo frowned slightly. It was a swarm of blood-red bats. The strong smell of blood hit him, and countless sharp cries merged together, seemingly affecting his mind. These bats had small horns on their heads, and their wingspan was massive. The blood-colored patterns on their wings were extremely clear. Seeing Su Zimo as an intruder, hundreds of blood dragon bats shrieked, seemingly warning him. Su Zimo didn't bother arguing. He knew the power of bloodline suppression. His consciousness immediately entered his true fate world. Chapter 364: The Dragon Gods Descend. In the true fate world at this moment, the 100 baby dragon gods had already started to grow. Although they hadn't fully entered their maturity phase, suppressing ordinary blood dragon bats with their bloodline was no longer a problem. Su Zimo's gaze was focused, and mist swirled behind him. A blue planet slowly rose. Endless pressure and energy currents spread out from within. Then came waves of deafening dragon roars. One after another, these roars were long and powerful. Endless shockwaves spread out in all directions, and the vast, god-beast level pressure blanketed half the sky. One by one, the dragon gods flew out of Su Zimo's true fate world. Each dragon was different in appearance with dazzling colors. Some dragons breathed clouds and mist, bringing storms and heavy rain. Some came with lightning and thunder, dominating half the sky like gods of thunder. Others were engulfed in flames, their fiery bodies incinerating the surrounding space. These 100 dragon gods radiated immense power, their dragon might enveloping the entire canyon. All the creatures nearby trembled in fear. The blood dragon bats, upon seeing the dragons, clung to the canyon walls. They wrapped their wings around their bodies and lay still, shivering in terror. The dragons surged into the bat's nest with unstoppable force. Unlike typical bat caves that were dark and damp, this nest was hot, with waves of heat rising from within. Along the way, Su Zimo saw countless bats clinging to the ceiling. If not for his 100 dragon gods, entering this nest would have meant a bloody battle. Dragon bloodlines had a natural suppressive effect on many demonic beasts due to their noble lineage. And for creatures like the blood dragon bats who carried diluted dragon blood, the pressure was even stronger. Su Zimo passed through the nest without resistance and reached the deepest part. There, he saw the interior clearly. Large clusters of blood dragon crystal stones were gathered together, taking up most of the central space. These stones looked like they were soaked in blood, appearing eerie and strange. They were transparent, and inside them something seemed to be struggling. Looking closer, Su Zimo realized they were baby blood dragon bats. Now he understood. These blood dragon crystal stones were used to nurture their offspring. As Su Zimo approached the stones, the bats overhead shrieked anxiously. But with dozens of dragon gods guarding him, their mighty presence made them untouchable. There were many crystal stones in the nest. Su Zimo picked those that didn't contain unborn bats, knocked them loose, stored them in his storage ring, then turned and left. Several hundred meters from the canyon, a group of people was slowly approaching. Leading them was an old man and a young man and woman. The others looked like guards. Uncle Chen, now's the perfect time. If we kill some blood dragon bats and purify the messy dragon blood in them, my own bloodline should advance a level, the young man said to the old man. The old man, called Uncle Chen, nodded and said, Shang Hui, be careful what you say out loud. The family originally required you to hunt the blood dragon bats yourself to purify your bloodline. This time I'm secretly helping you, so don't let anyone else know. Don't worry, Uncle Chen. Once I become the young patriarch, I won't forget your help. The young man, named Long Shanghui, smiled. He turned to the girl and said, Miss Xue, when I become the young patriarch, I'll have my father go to your family to propose. The girl frowned slightly. Her face was cold and flawless. With elegant eyebrows and a high nose, she said indifferently, Let's talk about other things later. You promised to get me a blood dragon crystal stone. Don't go back on your word. Don't worry, Long Shanghui nodded. At that moment, loud dragon roars erupted. The sound shook the earth and echoed to the heavens. Everyone looked up, stunned and speechless. Dragons, real dragons. Uncle Chen's aged face trembled slightly, his whole body frozen in place, overwhelmed with excitement. There are still real dragons here? How is that possible? Long Shanghui also looked shocked. Wasn't the entire dragon race wiped out by the Sky Shroud War God? To the people of Dragon City, perhaps too much time had passed. Many things had been forgotten or faded, but tales of the dragon race were still passed down. The dragon was the symbol of the city. Everyone looked up instinctively and saw the dragon gods soaring through the air, roaring with the weight of ancient history. Perhaps others couldn't feel it, but as a dragon blood warrior, Long Shanghui felt it clearly. His blood was boiling. It was as if something inside him was thrilled. Like boiling water in midsummer, he trembled uncontrollably. As the group rushed toward the canyon, they noticed the dragon roars growing fainter. The dragon gods in the sky were also gradually disappearing. What's going on? The dragons are leaving. Everyone panicked. When they arrived at the base of the canyon, the dragons had long vanished without a trace. Only a purple-robed youth stood atop a vine-covered tree. Everyone looked up at him. In this remote wilderness, seeing someone suddenly appear was indeed strange. You there? Did you see the dragons just now? Long Shanghui frowned and asked Su Zimo. Where did the dragons go? Su Zimo glanced at him, then shook his head and turned to leave, ready to return to Dragon City and find the dustless alchemist. But Long Shanghui stepped forward, blocking his path. Answer me, where did the dragons go? Long Shanghui asked, signaling Uncle Chen with his eyes. The others subtly surrounded Su Zimo. Only Miss Xue stood aside, watching coldly. The appearance of real dragons was definitely unusual, and Long Shanghui had a gut feeling that this was connected to the purple-robed youth before them. Better to kill 1,000 by mistake than let one escape. The extinction of the dragon race had been confirmed long ago. The dragon clan bloodline had no reason to doubt that. Now that dragons had reappeared, Long Shanghui was convinced the scene they had just witnessed was some kind of vision caused by a legacy artifact of the dragon race. And the purple-robed youth in front of them was definitely involved. Nowadays, with no real dragons around, the only way for dragon-blooded warriors to improve their bloodline was by hunting these mixed blood variants. Chapter 365, Conflict. These hybrid species had extremely impure bloodlines, and purifying them was a troublesome process. If anything went wrong, the bloodline could become corrupted, and they'd end up poisoned by their own blood. But if he could now get a dragon race treasure and soak in pure dragon blood, then Long Shanghui's bloodline would become supreme. Not only would the position of young patriarch be guaranteed, he might even become the most legendary expert in the history of the dragon clan. He thought about many things, his mind racing, and the more he thought, the more excited he became. Kid, hand over your storage ring. I need to check it, Long Shanghui said coldly. Uncle Chen, Take him down. As soon as he gave the order, the surrounding guards and the old man charged forward. The guards were only in the desolate Meridian realm, so Su Zimo didn't care. But the old man called Uncle Chen had already opened 6 Meridian gates, an expert in the Imperial Meridian realm. As the group attacked, Su Zimo slowly raised his right hand. Endless spirit force gathered in his palm, forming into a glowing sphere. Inside, lightning flashed and thunder roared, carrying an intense and terrifying power. With the orb suspended in his hand, the energy inside reached a critical point. With a loud boom, it exploded. Spirit force shot in all directions, forming countless arrows of energy that blasted outward. Swish, swish, swish. The desolate Meridian guards couldn't even react before they were all pierced by the countless energy arrows. Their bodies froze in place. Uncle Chun reacted quickly, retreating at high speed. Su Zimo smiled slightly and slammed down with his hand. Another loud boom. The ground cracked, and a massive 5-finger handprint appeared on the ground. Uncle Chun was completely pinned down and couldn't move. Meanwhile, Long Shanghui noticed something was wrong and had already started fleeing. He had kept some distance from the fight in case something went wrong. Seeing this, Su Zimo smiled. "You think you can escape?" He waved his hand, and 2 spirit arrows formed from energy appeared in his palm. Cold light gathered at the arrowheads. Swish, swish. The arrows pierced the sky with unstoppable force. They shot through Long Shanghui's legs, pinning him firmly to the ground. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't move. Su Zimo turned his head and looked at the stunned woman nearby. "You should be glad you didn't make a move just now," he said calmly. "I didn't see anything." "I won't say anything either," the girl said, shaking her head. "Doesn't matter if you talk. I just hate people who talk behind my back," Su Zimo replied flatly. At that moment, Long Shanghui's body began to change drastically. His eyes turned blood red, and a layer of dark red dragon scales covered his skin. 2 small horns grew from his forehead. His ears became sharp, and long whiskers grew from his cheeks. A deep dragon roar came from his mouth. His hands transformed into sharp claws. Though his legs were pinned down, he roared and slashed them off with his claws. Then a pair of wings, thin as cicada wings, sprouted from his back. He opened them and fled into the distance in a sorry state. Su Zimo chuckled and waved his right hand. The 2 remaining spirit arrows on the ground shot out and chased after him. The arrows pierced through Long Shanghui's back, going straight through his body. His screams echoed across the land as he disappeared into the distance. Seeing this, the girl asked in confusion, "Why didn't you just kill him? When he gets back, the Dragon Clan will definitely know what happened. My last strike shattered the dragon core inside him. He'll never become a Dragonblood warrior again," Su Zimo replied calmly. "You need to understand, there are many things in this world far worse than death." Hearing that, the girl was silent for a moment, then finally nodded. Watching Su Zimo's figure disappear, she stood there for a long time before finally remembering her own purpose. After returning to Dragon City, Su Zimo brought the Blood Dragon crystal stones he found to the courtyard where the Dustless Alchemist lived. "You really found it," the Dustless Alchemist said in surprise, looking at the steaming crystal stones. "What, were you hoping I'd fail?" Su Zimo asked with a faint smile.
No.
"These Blood Dragon crystal stones are the key to a pill I've been researching. But that bat nest is nearly impossible to enter. Many people have died there." The Dustless Alchemist shook his head. "I didn't think you'd get it safely all by yourself." "When are you refining the pill?" Su Zimo asked flatly. "Noon tomorrow. I just need some time to prepare," the Dustless Alchemist replied. Leaving the remote courtyard, Su Zimo returned to the inn. Once the pill was refined tomorrow, he could set off for the northern continent. Meanwhile, in the Dragon Clan's main hall, Long Shanghui lay unconscious, covered in blood, surrounded by the clan's grand elders. A gray-robed old man crouched beside him, treating his wounds. After a long while, the old man stood up and sighed. "How is he?" Long Yaotian, patriarch of the Dragon Clan, asked anxiously. His life isn't in danger, but his dragon core has been shattered. He'll never be a dragonblood warrior again, the gray-robed elder said, shaking his head. There's no other way? Long Yaotian asked grimly. There's something that can rebuild a dragon core, but as the patriarch knows, the price is too steep. We can't afford it, the elder replied. I understand. You may go. Long Yaotian nodded and waved him off. Long Shanghui slowly woke up from his coma, his head pounding and his body weak and aching. He felt like he was on the brink of death. Opening his eyes, he saw the clan's meeting hall and his father and the elders. He finally relaxed. Kid, who did this to you? Long Yaotian asked, frowning. I don't know him, but I can draw his face, Long Shanghui replied quickly. Father, I'll be okay, right? You'll be fine, Long Yaotian said after a brief pause. He didn't tell him the truth about the dragon core. He feared his son wouldn't be able to handle the blow while still recovering. Go rest for now, Long Yaotian sighed. Bring me the drawing later. I'll launch a citywide search for that criminal. Long Shanghui nodded and left the meeting hall. Chapter 366. You dare draw your blade in front of me? Winter snow was always unpredictable. Just after stopping last night, it began falling again at dawn. By noon, the sunlight had warmed up slightly. Su Zimo arrived at the small courtyard where the dustless alchemist lived. The refining of the bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill will cause a phenomenon to appear. At that time, people will likely come to steal it, the dustless alchemist warned. At that point, Alchemist Wan and I will be fully focused on refining. Whether the pill succeeds or not depends on whether you can protect us and keep others from interrupting. Just focus on your alchemy. Su Zimo nodded calmly. I'll also remind you, I only have one set of materials. Failure is not an option. The dustless alchemist nodded and entered the courtyard with Alchemist Wan. Su Zimo stepped into the air and sat calmly under the roof eaves, resting his hand on his blade. He closed his eyes slightly, as if in thought. Time passed slowly. After a while, the scent of pills began to waft from the secluded courtyard. The fragrance grew thicker, and occasionally, deafening beastly roars echoed from within. These sounds were enough to draw attention from parts of Dragon City. People began gathering around the courtyard, trying to find out what was going on. As time went on, the pill fragrance became almost tangible. The beast roars grew more frequent, and even the earth began to tremble. Finally, with a loud boom, an aurora burst into the sky, painting the heavens in multicolored light. Mist swirled, and the dazzling aurora was impossible to ignore. Within the light, countless beastly figures roared toward the sky. The overwhelming beastly pressure blanketed half the city. What is that? Someone asked, staring up at the sky in confusion. Someone's refining a pill, and not just any pill. Someone nearby narrowed their eyes and thought, let's go see. This could be the start of something big. A divine pill, and it seems to be a beast pill. It's been so many years since Dragon City last saw a phenomenon like this. As more people gathered, the alley surrounding the courtyard was filled with a crowd. The noise and chatter were chaotic. Some were there just to watch, while others had darker intentions and schemes of their own. Su Zimo remained still, eyes closed, resting under the roof's edge. A plaque hung over the courtyard gate, with bold characters, "Do not disturb, enter at your own risk." Many who wanted to knock hesitated upon seeing the sign. Finally, someone decided to try. He walked forward and knocked on the door twice. The moment his knock landed, a blinding blade light shot down from above. The man didn't even have time to react before he was sliced into 8 pieces, his blood staining the ground. The surrounding crowd gasped, clearly shocked by the violence. "Look! Someone's on the roof!" Someone with sharp eyes shouted, pointing upward. Everyone looked up and saw Su Zimo in a purple robe, his bangs blowing in the cold wind. Snow fell on his shoulders, and he sat there like a statue, resting with his blade and not moving an inch. There was no aura around him. Many couldn't even sense his presence at all. "Who is he?" someone asked in confusion. "No idea. Never seen him before in Dragon City," some locals replied. As people discussed him, a figure suddenly stepped into the air, flying toward the rooftop youth. "It's Thousand Endings, the Mad Blade of Snow," someone in the crowd shouted. "The Mad Blade?" Someone else thought for a moment, then realized. He meditated in the snow for 3 years, mastering the blade. His name echoes through Dragon City. Many knew the Mad Blade was hot-tempered. They watched with interest to see the outcome of the clash. Thousand Endings walked through the air, looking at Suzumo and asking from afar, "May I ask your name, sir?" "Dead men don't need to know my name," Suzumo replied calmly. "I mean no harm," Thousand Endings quickly said. "I just want to ask who the master refining the pill here is. I already said it on the plaque. Enter and bear the consequences." Suzumo slowly raised his head. He stood up as snow slid from his body with a soft rustle. "Aren't you being a little too arrogant?" Thousand Endings snorted. "We're both blade wielders. How about a spar? You think you're worthy to draw your blade in front of me?" As Suzumo's voice fell, he didn't even unsheath his blade. He simply swung it lightly in the air. A blade light several dozen meters long erupted instantly. It sliced through layers of space, rushing forth with unstoppable sharpness. Thousand Endings' face changed drastically. This strike was too fast. He didn't even have time to draw his weapon and could only retreat as fast as possible. But he still underestimated the blade's power. With a thunderous crash, the blade light split the sky in half, collapsing part of the heavens. It cut Thousand Endings clean in two at the waist. As his hot blood was quickly buried beneath the cold snow, his wide-eyed, terrified expression was frozen in front of the crowd. Many stepped back in fear, too stunned to speak. "I'll say this once." Suzumo stood tall as spirit force surged around him. "Cross this gate and die. The Mad Blade is dead? Just like that?" Someone gasped, unable to believe what they'd just seen. He couldn't even survive a single move. The crowd fell silent. To dare refine pills in Dragon City, the man clearly came prepared and confident. More people looked up. The aurora in the sky grew even stronger. It pierced through the falling snow, broke through the clouds, and tore the sky apart. Countless beast figures roared within. More and more people were drawn in. Everyone knew a powerful figure was refining a pill in Dragon City. Such a phenomenon only appeared with divine pills. And someone powerful was standing guard outside. Refining the bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill wasn't something that could be done quickly. In the snowy weather, many stayed for an entire day and night, afraid they might miss the moment the divine pill was born. By the afternoon of the next day, the snow had covered the entire city. The 9 dragons in the sky now looked as though they wore robes of pure white. The beastly shadows roaring in the sky reached a critical point. With another deafening explosion, the aurora vanished, and a wave of dense pill fragrance spread across all of Dragon City. Within the city, countless demonic beasts instinctively roared into the air. Chapter 367, Bloodthirsty Immortal Ascension Pill. At this moment, the aurora shattered, and even the continuous beastly roars seemed to reach their peak. Finally, with one final deafening roar that seemed to use up all its strength, the roof of the inner house in the courtyard was directly blasted open, and a single pill flew out from the opening. "The pill has gained sentience. Stop it quickly!" The dustless alchemist shouted anxiously from inside. Suzumo frowned slightly and flew straight toward the pill. The pill seemed aware and resisted. An image of a beast formed above it. It was a strange beast that swung a massive claw and opened its blood-red mouth to bite at Suzumo. Suzumo coldly snorted, drawing his saber, Shadow Tyrant. With a sharp sound, endless spirit force gathered on the blade. A massive explosion followed. The saber light shattered the beast image instantly, while Shadow Tyrant buzzed lightly in the sky. As the sharp blade hovered threateningly, the bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill trembled and froze in place. It clearly sensed that if it tried to flee, it would be split in half without mercy. As soon as Su Zimo grasped the pill in his palm, 4 figures suddenly flew out from the crowd below. All 4 moved simultaneously, each surrounded by the power of the Imperial Meridian Realm. They were trying to steal the pill. Su Zimo let out a cold snort and turned to face them. "It's the 4 elders of Heaven Mountain," someone in the crowd shouted. "They're all veteran cultivators. Now they're ganging up on one person. Shameful." Another muttered in dissatisfaction. "Oh please, compared to a divine pill, who cares about reputation?" The 4 rose into the sky, each taking a different position to surround Su Zimo, preventing him from escaping. Behind each of them appeared their true fate: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, the 4 god beasts. Their powerful presence blanketed half the sky. Spirit force surged, and space began to fracture. The elder representing Azure Dragon extended his hand and said, "Kid, hand over the beast pill, and I'll let you go." "Huh? You and what army?" Su Zimo laughed lightly, then scanned the crowd below and said, "Anyone else who wants this pill, come now. Save me the trouble of dealing with you one by one." Hearing his words, some people in the crowd stirred, but most stayed cautious. Let the 4 elders of Heaven Mountain test the waters first. If Su Zimo was truly powerful, they wouldn't have to throw their lives away. If it was just bluff, then a big fight would surely break out. Nobody here was stupid. Su Zimo dared refine pills openly in the city, so he clearly had confidence. "Looks like you're determined to be stubborn." The 4 elders of Heaven Mountain snorted coldly. Their true fates roared behind them, the 4 god beasts howling as they surged through the sky. Then, the beasts merged, transforming into 4 formation marks that descended from the heavens. The marks were filled with ferocity, and in an instant, a deadly formation formed. Inside it, even space was frozen. The 4 beasts surrounded Su Zimo with bloodlust. Dragons coiled, tigers crouched, phoenixes cried, turtles roared. Endless spirit force hummed in the air. "Kid, this is your last chance. Don't seek death," one of the 4 said with killing intent. "This is all you've got?" Su Zimo laughed coldly. He stepped into the air, and the pressure of an Empyrean Meridian Realm expert surged around him. Like a great river flowing at sunset, overwhelming and unstoppable. Lightning crackled over Shadow Tyrant, and fire and wind howled around it. With one slash, the saber erupted with heavenly force. The shadows of the 4 beasts were shattered instantly, fading with a dying cry. But this formation wasn't simple. As soon as the first set of beast images disappeared, spirit force around them condensed and formed new ones again, as if endless and unkillable. Su Zimo sneered and slowly sheathed Shadow Tyrant. In his eyes, lightning surged, tiny arcs flickered faintly. At that moment, his eyes turned cold and emotionless, as if stripped of all feeling. More and more lightning gathered in his eyes. Dark purple lightning crackled and popped. Something terrifying was forming. Su Zimo raised his head slightly, lightning flickering in his cold eyes. With a loud boom, 2 bolts of lightning burst from his eyes, piercing through the void, shattering all space in their path. The speed was like 10,000 bolts of thunder. The Heaven Mountain 4 didn't even have time to react. The deadly formation was destroyed, and the lightning continued forward. 2 of the elders were instantly obliterated by the sea of thunder. They didn't even have time to scream. The remaining 2's faces turned pale in horror. They didn't dare stay a second longer and tried to flee. Su Zimo chuckled. "Trying to run?" He waved his hand and summoned the immortal suppression chain he had obtained from the Silent Extinction Ridge. Spirit force surged as the chains clanged and rattled. They quickly extended to over 1,000 meters long. One end shot out like a streak of light. With a sharp whoosh, in just a blink, they caught up with the 2 fleeing elders. The chains wrapped tightly around them. This chain was special. It didn't just bind the body, it sealed the meridians. Once caught by it, a cultivator's meridians were blocked, and they became no different from an ordinary person. Escape was nearly impossible. The remaining two elders looked completely hopeless and pleaded with Suzimo. "Please, we were blinded by greed. Let us go. We'll serve you faithfully in return." Suzimo shook his head and smiled, then waved his hand again. The immortal suppression chains tightened even more, squeezing the two men. As the chains contracted, their faces turned red, and they screamed in agony. "Please, spare us, Dash." Before they could finish, there was a loud explosion. The spirit force in the chains erupted, crushing the two of them into blood mist. The blood mist floated in the air, slowly drifting downward. Suzimo leapt up and landed atop the courtyard gate. Looking down at the crowd around him, he said, "Now, who else wants this pill?" The crowd fell completely silent. The Heaven Mountain Four were well known in Dragon City. They weren't the strongest but still powerful figures. Yet they had been slaughtered so effortlessly. Anyone who had thoughts of stealing the pill was now silent. Some people even began to leave quietly. Suzimo snorted lightly and returned to the inner house of the courtyard. The bloodthirsty Immortal Ascension pill was completely pure white, about the size of a fist. Strange beast patterns were carved across its surface. Holding it in his palm, it radiated a burning warmth. Chapter 368, Journey to the Northern Continent. He stored the pill and got ready to say goodbye to the dustless alchemist. This bloodthirsty Immortal Ascension pill must be used within 1 month. It's not like other pills. Otherwise, the medicinal effect will slowly evaporate. The dustless alchemist reminded him. Suzimo nodded slightly. Chaos Breakthrough would be too noisy, so he didn't plan to do it in Dragon City. He would wait until reaching the northern continent to decide. To go from the eastern continent to the northern continent, Dragon City was the most direct route. Leaving Dragon City, he walked straight north. He walked until the end of the official road, which led directly to the endless sky sea. The boundless coastline stretched with the horizon for tens of thousands of miles with no end in sight. The deep blue seawater was slightly murky. The green stones by the sea had been smoothed and polished over countless years by the tides. The sea wind was strong, roaring and sweeping through with cold currents. In this snowy winter, it was fortunate the sea hadn't frozen. Snowflakes drifted onto the water, rustling as they blanketed the endless sky sea. From afar, everything was shrouded in mist, deep and dark. Meanwhile, back at the Dragon Clan, the atmosphere inside the discussion hall was unusually tense. So quiet it was eerie. After a long while, the Dragon Clan's patriarch, Long Yaotian, finally let out a sigh. He said, "Is everything you said true?" The elder of the Long Clan nodded affirmatively and said, "The Holy Sun's token can't be faked. The one who injured Huir should be him. I've seen the portrait. We also sent people to confirm with the true martial sacred ground. Their holy son is indeed called Suzimo. That's troubling. Patriarch, we have to consider the big picture." The great elder stood up and said to Long Yaotian, "We can't afford to offend the holy son of the true martial sacred ground. We've already learned enough from the early days of building Dragon City." "Yes, yes." Several elders next to him nodded in agreement. This incident probably started because of Shang Hui. We all know his personality. Hearing the elders' discussion and advice, Long Yaotian stayed silent for a moment. As a father, he did want to kill Suzimo to avenge his son. But he also knew he was the head of the massive Dragon Clan. Every move he made, every decision, represented the Dragon Clan. He sighed deeply and opened his eyes slowly. He said, "You don't have to worry. I know what I'm doing. Let's end this matter here." "Wise decision, Patriarch," the elders respectfully replied. Watching the elders leave, Long Yaotian's expression grew uglier. The elder of the Myriad Treasure Pavilion stayed silent for a moment, then finally asked, "Patriarch, are you all right?" "I'm fine, just angry that I'm not strong enough." Long Yaotian shook his head and replied calmly, "In truth, Patriarch, if you want revenge, it's not impossible." The pavilion elder said after some thought, "I won't drag the entire clan into the grave," Long Yaotian said calmly. "No, That's not what I meant, the pavilion elder quickly explained. Sometimes to kill a person, you don't need to do it yourself. Just make their death look like an accident. What do you mean? Long Yaotian turned and asked in confusion. Why do you think the Holy Sun came to Dragon City? The pavilion elder asked with a smile. Most people who come to Dragon City have only one goal, to head to the northern continent. Long Yaotian replied, eyes lighting up. Then our Holy Sun friend is likely no different. The pavilion elder smiled. The endless sky sea is full of dangers. If the ship carrying the Holy Sun capsized in the sea, well, no one can be blamed for that. Why didn't I think of that? Long Yaotian smiled faintly, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. Dragon Harbor. This was the largest port on the edge of the endless sky sea. All ships heading to the northern continent departed from here. It was afternoon now, and the dusk turned the horizon a dark yellow. The sky and the coastline crossed paths in the distance, wrapped in a blanket of mist, created an illusion of beauty. Ships didn't sail in the evening, especially in snowy weather like this. The creatures living in the endless sky sea were more active at night, hunting more frequently. Su Zimo could only find an inn nearby and wait until the next day to depart. The inns around here were very busy. Especially at night, they were brightly lit. Many people who wanted to board the ships early the next morning stayed here. As Su Zimo walked along the coast, a medium-sized boat suddenly approached him. Friend, need a ride? A man in a green robe with a bushy beard stood on the boat. He was paddling with an oar and smiled at Su Zimo. Going to the northern continent? Su Zimo asked curiously. Yes, the old man nodded. You dare sail at night? Su Zimo asked. This is a black market boat, just doing some small-time business, the old man said with a laugh. Over 90% of the ships in Dragon Harbor are operated by the Dragon Clan. They've pretty much taken over everything. Boats like mine only survive in the cracks. Are you getting on or not? We can leave tonight. Su Zimo nodded slightly. As long as he could reach the northern continent, he didn't care about the method. He jumped on the boat, and the old man's spirit force began to surge. The oars on both sides spun quickly. The boat glided across the silent sea, leaving small waves behind as it headed toward the boundless ocean. Darkness fell, and the sea at night was incredibly quiet. A full moon hung in the sky. The shimmering sea reflected scattered spots of light. Su Zimo leaned against the side of the boat, resting with his eyes closed. The night air was much colder. The old man in the green robe focused seriously on steering the boat. How much longer? After a while, Su Zimo opened his eyes and asked. 3 more days to the northern continent, the old man replied. His face, full of wrinkles and lines, looked oddly terrifying and eerie. He grinned with a set of yellow teeth and said, But hell is only 1 step away. Hearing this, Su Zimo smiled faintly. Something had felt off during the journey, but he couldn't recall offending anyone in Dragon City. Did the Dragon Clan send you? He asked cautiously. After all, he'd clashed with Long Shenghui during the Blood Dragon Bat incident. Dead men don't need to ask questions, the old man replied coldly. You're that sure I'll die? Do you know where we are? The old man asked with a smile. The Sea of Sinking Death. Anyone who goes under here, even an Empyrean Meridian Realm cultivator, can't get out. Don't think about escaping, we're already in the middle of the Death Sea. In that case, you won't be leaving either, Su Zimo frowned and said. Chapter 369 Chaos Advances to Immortality. Who said I plan to leave? The old man replied indifferently. I'll die with you, so you won't be alone. As he finished speaking, the oar in his hand spun rapidly. The boat they were on suddenly split into 4 parts. The broken pieces sank the moment they touched the sea. Su Zimo and the old man fell into the water without surprise. The instant his clothes touched the sea, Su Zimo felt a tremendous force. In this sea of sinking death, it felt like every drop of water weighed 10,000 pounds. And the more you struggled, the faster you sank. You're really not afraid to die, Su Zimo said with a smirk. glancing at the calm old man beside him. Everyone dies. As long as I die with meaning, it's worth it. The old man replied flatly. The sea water of the sea of sinking death was swallowing them up bit by bit. And the danger wasn't just that. Waves began to ripple around them. Several crocodile-like creatures, resembling prehistoric monsters, surrounded them. These crocodiles were more than 10 meters long, their bodies covered in green scales. Their tough outer skin was lined with sharp backward-facing spikes. As one of them leaped to test its prey, the old man let out a painful scream. Su Zimo turned and saw one of the old man's arms had been ripped clean off. The sea was dyed red with blood. Pitiful, Su Zimo chuckled. What's so funny? You're next. The old man growled, bloodied and grim. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. He could tell this sea wasn't ordinary. Even a normal Empyrean Meridian realm cultivator might not escape it. Mist gathered behind him as his true fate realm appeared. A blue planet slowly rose into the air. In that moment, a powerful aura spread from Su Zimo's body. You? Feeling his overwhelming pressure, the old man was left speechless in shock. You can sink here alone and become food for the crocodiles, Su Zimo said coldly. With one step into the air, a massive wave surged upward. Su Zimo forced his body out of the sea of sinking death. Explosions rumbled around him. The blue planet behind him rose into the sky bit by bit. With the lack of prey, the surrounding crocodiles began roaring in frustration. Eager for a meal, they pounced on the old man. Chunks of flesh were torn from him. His screams echoed through the dark sea. It was chilling. Watching the old man get torn apart bite by bite, Su Zimo smiled faintly. Seeing the still hungry crocodiles below, he slashed down with his saber, Shadow Tyrant. Endless blade energy erupted, splitting half the sea. The waters froze. In the middle of the sea, Spirit Force blocked everything, preventing the water from rejoining. Su Zimo stood with his blade, walking once around the sea's center. Every crocodile he passed was slain. The beasts of the sea of sinking death cowered in fear, scattering and hiding. The saber's energy sparked towering waves across the deep sea. Su Zimo floated in the darkness, his eyes fixed ahead. Dragon Clan, oh Dragon Clan. I didn't even plan to pursue what Long Shenghui did. But since you're asking for death, I'll grant it. In the endless darkness, Su Zimo sat cross-legged. He waved his hand, and the space before him shattered. The massive form of Chaos walked out. What's your success rate of advancing to Arcane Immortal Realm now? Su Zimo asked. 50%, Chaos answered in a deep voice. I've been at the peak of God Meridian Realm for a long time, but I always felt I was missing the chance to ascend, so I waited. Who knew that wait would span the rise of the Imperial Era? I nearly died, heavily injured and barely survived. Su Zimo nodded slightly and took out the bloodthirsty Immortal Ascension pill. The rich scent of the pill filled the air. He tossed it to Chaos. I'm giving you half a month to break through to the Arcane Immortal Realm. During that time, I'll guard you. Break through in peace. Feeling the mighty beastly aura of the divine pill, Chaos was silent for a moment, then gave a heavy nod. Ignoring Chaos' breakthrough, Su Zimo sat to the side, gently wiping the blade of Shadow Tyrant. The pill was just a support. For Chaos to truly ascend, it depended on itself. To comprehend its own path, and step into the realm all beings desired, the immortal path vast like the sea. Chaos didn't consume the pill immediately. It sat coiled on the sea, adjusting its condition little by little. Its energy, spirit, and essence were all pushed to a critical point. Just the preparation took 3 full days and nights. Until dawn on the 4th day, a loud boom erupted. A shockwave spread outward from Chaos. It howled toward the sky, the roar echoing far and wide. The spirit force around it surged wildly. Its aura fluctuated, strong and weak. The mighty beastly pressure flooded the surroundings. Chaos remained unmoving, but as time passed, its aura grew even more powerful, and its massive body was slowly shrouded in mist. The mist thickened until it became almost solid. It wasn't ordinary mist, it was immortal mist. Profound and mysterious, it formed a large cocoon, nurturing something inside. As more time passed, the sea under Chaos began to churn. Its pressure reached new heights, cracking the surrounding space. Like a spiderweb, lines spread outward. Chaos's path was one of devouring. This was its destined path from the beginning. At this moment, a dark red vortex appeared in its abdomen. It was vast and bottomless, with thunder and fire exploding inside. Su Zimo turned slightly. He could tell Chaos had entered a profound state. Whether it could step into the immortal path, separate from the mortal world, would be decided now. He looked around, confirming that the area was desolate and free of other creatures. Only then did he feel at ease. Another week passed as Chaos meditated. That day, its spirit force surged stronger than ever. A deafening beast roar rang out. It swallowed the bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill. The beastly aura grew to its peak. I am an immortal beast. Immortal pressure flooded outward around Chaos. The entire sky trembled. Winds and clouds turned into dragons. Thunderstorms raged. Chapter 370. I'm just here to wipe out a clan. Layers of space shattered before him. Chaos' massive body stirred up the clouds and wind. Immortal pressure surged steadily around him. The cocoon of immortal mist that had surrounded him was slowly dissolving. Chaos had entered a special state of enlightenment. His aura fluctuated between the peak of God Meridian realm and stepping into the arcane immortal realm. Countless bang 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 sounds echoed from inside his body. He was trying repeatedly to break through the 9th Meridian gate. The difficulty could be imagined. After multiple impacts, the Meridian gate still hadn't opened. Instead, the intense internal collision caused countless cracks to appear on the surface of his body. The 9th Meridian gate was about breaking through the void, shattering space, breaking the shackles of self. Stepping onto the immortal path might not compare to becoming a grand emperor, but the brutality and hardship of it were known to few. The later Meridian gates were exponentially harder to open. Blood flowed heavily from the cracks on Chaos' body, dyeing him crimson. He roared in pain. With every impact, more cracks appeared on his body. At this rate, his entire body might fall apart. Su Zimo frowned slightly. He had underestimated how difficult it would be to advance into the immortal realm. But since the first step had been taken, there was no backing down. He waved his right hand, revealing the blue planet of his true fate. A branch from the tree of life extended from the planet, entering Chaos' body. The thick green glow and life force wrapped around Chaos' massive body, quickly healed his wounds. The cracks on his body closed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Only then did Su Zimo breathe a sigh of relief. The tree of life had indeed helped him greatly. Chaos continued ramming the 9th Meridian gate over and over, completely unfazed by injury. Any wounds were immediately healed by the tree of life. This final charge lasted nearly 2 hours. Vast beastly pressure blanketed half the sea. Finally, a loud bang echoed from within Chaos' body. Something had broken. A river of spirit force surged, billowing through Chaos' body like a sunset over a river. With the 9th Meridian gate opened, Chaos' aura finally stabilized in the arcane immortal realm. Though he had just taken the first step, becoming an arcane immortal, it was the most crucial step. The following steps would also be difficult but far less dangerous. Explosions rumbled around Chaos. The sky churned, and waves rose 100 meters high as the blue sea burst along the coastline. Chaos, originally pitch black, looked even darker now. His body had grown larger again, especially the wings on his back, once thin as cicada wings, now spanned wide enough to cover the sky. On his abdomen, dark purple lightning and crimson fire danced together. Master, Chaos half knelt, respectfully greeting Su Zimo. He knew he could only break into the arcane immortal realm thanks to Su Zimo. Whether it was the bloodthirsty immortal ascension pill or the healing from the tree of life, though he had sacrificed much as a beast bound by blood, he had gained even more. Come with me to wipe out a clan. Su Zimo smiled calmly, hands behind his back. Chaos lowered his body, his massive form lying flat across the sea. Su Zimo leaped up, landing atop Chaos' head. Chaos arched his body slightly, then shot toward Dragon City like a black streak of light. To the people of Dragon City, this place held special meaning. It had existed since the Imperial era, nearly 1,000,000 years ago. Its deep history made it one of the most notable cities on the eastern continent. Winter snow fell as icy winds howled through the streets. Many shops had already shut down for the night. Only a few pedestrians hurried through the streets. The ancient city walls stood in the snow. Above, for lifelike dragon gods remained in a sky-soaring pose, circling a dragon pearl. The earth trembled faintly. The ground beneath Dragon City began to shake. Explosions rumbled closer and louder. It was the beginning of a new day in Dragon City. The dawn sun slowly rose in the east. People still asleep were woken by the disturbance. Some opened their windows groggily. Others stepped outside in thick coats, facing the falling snow. At that moment, all eyes turned to the city gate. A massive claw descended from the sky. With a deafening crash, destruction fell. The city's landmark, those 4 dragons and the dragon pearl, standing for hundreds of years, collapsed under the massive claw. Cries of alarm erupted throughout the city. Chaos' massive body rose, towering far above the city walls. As Su Zimo stood on Chaos' head, he looked down on the entire city. As rulers of Dragon City, the Dragon Clan was bound to respond to the attack. As the 4 dragons collapsed, Long Yaotian appeared with 4 elders. They rose into the air, facing Su Zimo from a distance. May I ask who has arrived? If Dragon City has not welcomed you properly, please forgive us, Long Yaotian said respectfully but firmly. I'm here to wipe out a clan, Su Zimo replied calmly. May I ask which clan you intend to wipe out? Long Yaotian looked up, only getting half the question out before seeing Su Zimo's face clearly. He had seen the portrait Long Shenghui had drawn before. He knew what the holy son of the true martial sacred ground looked like. Now he was momentarily stunned. He couldn't understand why Su Zimo, who was supposed to be sent to perish in the sea of sinking death, was here. But a sense of foreboding crept into his heart. May I ask which clan you intend to wipe out? Long Yaotian forced himself to speak again. Your dragon clan sure know how to put on a show, Su Zimo said flatly. Even now, when things are this clear, you still won't admit it? Hearing this, Long Yaotian knew the truth had been exposed. There was no point in hiding anymore. His expression turned serious. If the sacred ground wants to pursue this matter, I will take full responsibility. This has nothing to do with the Dragon Clan. As a father, I only acted out of selfish revenge for my son.
Chapter 371, Beast Ceiling Absolute Radiance Formation.
This has nothing to do with the true martial sacred ground. I'm just settling a personal matter, Su Zimo said calmly. Also, when I said I'd destroy a clan, I meant I won't leave a single one alive. The nearby elders were stunned at first, but after hearing Su Zimo and Long Yaotian's exchange, they realized what had happened. Patriarch, you sent someone to assassinate him? One elder asked cautiously. Seeing Long Yaotian nod slightly, the elder shook his head helplessly. You were foolish. You've dragged the Dragon Clan into disaster. Then he looked at Su Zimo and quickly added, Holy Son, this has nothing to do with our Dragon Clan. It was purely the Patriarch's selfish actions. Fine, then prove it, Su Zimo said with a light laugh. How? The elder asked, confused. Hang his head on the city gate, Su Zimo said coldly. You have 3 minutes. This? The elder hesitated slightly, turning to Long Yaotian with uncertainty. Patriarch, it's your decision. We can't really kill the Patriarch with our own hands, can we? Another elder sighed. Should we summon the old ancestor? But that beast has already become immortal. Would the old ancestor even help? Unless we contact the main clan, but would they really stand against the true martial sacred ground for us? The elders muttered among themselves, but no one had a solution. Chaos' massive body cast a shadow over half the city. Immense immortal pressure radiated from him. Just having stepped into the immortal realm, Chaos freely unleashed his power. His eyes, as big as fists, glared around, as if nothing in Dragon City could escape his gaze. Seeing this, Long Yaotian slowly shook his head and stepped forward. My life or death has nothing to do with the family. No one else needs to decide it, he said calmly. So you plan to resist to the end? Su Zimo asked. Chaos roared at the sky. His massive claw swept through the silent sky and smashed down. With a loud boom, the ancient city wall nearby collapsed completely. Dust flew into the air. But Long Yaotian remained still under the overwhelming pressure. He took a deep breath and asked, "Do you know why this city is called Dragon City?" Su Zimo squinted his eyes slightly and waited. It's because when the city was first built, several dragon gods were slain here, Long Yaotian said calmly. Later, to atone for that debt to the dragon race, the city was named Dragon City. Many years have passed. The dragon race has long been wiped out, vanished into the dust of time. But Dragon City still stands. As he spoke, he waved his hand, revealing a blue token in his palm. A multicolored beam shot from the token straight into the sky. The 4 dragon gods that Chaos had previously destroyed began to reassemble. A golden wave of energy spread from the dragon pearl at the center outward. As the wave intensified, the dragon pearl trembled violently. Dragon roars echoed across the city. The 4 dragons passed through the golden waves, as if bathed in sacred light. They were alive again. Lifelike golden dragons coiled together, each biting the tail of another, forming a massive golden dragon ring. The world will never know the true secret of Dragon City, Long Yaotian said, locking eyes with Su Zimo. The beast-sealing absolute radiance formation. It was the formation that once killed 4 dragon gods. And it's also our city's protective formation. As he spoke, Long Yaotian's body changed dramatically. Layers of dragon scales covered his body, sharp and solid. 2 long red horns grew from his head. Compared to Long Shanghui's dragonblood warrior form, Long Yaotian's transformation was clearly far more complete. Su Zimo didn't doubt that if he continued evolving, he might truly become something close to a real dragon. The nearby elders were stunned. It seemed they hadn't known about the beast-sealing absolute radiance formation either. The golden dragon ring descended from the sky, surrounding Su Zimo and Chaos. Su Zimo could feel that the space around them had been completely sealed off. The pressure inside the formation was even more lethal to beast-type creatures. I know I'm no match for your true martial sacred ground, Long Yaotian said with firm aura. But after this battle, we will leave Dragon City and return to our main clan. For now, this is not your place to act recklessly. Hearing that, Su Zimo turned to Chaos and smiled. Looks like he's underestimating you. The dragon clan from the Desolate Age was just a bunch of ants, Chaos said coldly. The true dragon gods have long ascended to the outer heavens. This formation killing 4 dragon gods is nothing special. The Desolate Age of Beasts was led by the 10 great god beasts. Chaos had reason to dismiss the old dragon race. Oh? Then please break the formation, Long Yaotian said from above the formation, activating it with a cold snort. He turned to the elders and said, "Organize the family's evacuation." "What about the main clan?" one elder asked. "I'll handle it. I'll take full responsibility," Long Yaotian replied calmly. The elder nodded. At this point, there was no reason to argue. After watching the elders leave, Long Yaotian focused again. Spirit force surged around him, accompanied by waves of dragon roars. The golden dragon ring glowed brightly with the dragon chants. Countless dragon phantoms rose into the sky, creating chaos within the ring. Chaos snorted coldly and raised his claw. Then he slammed it down hard. Endless waves of energy exploded beneath his claw. With a loud boom, countless dragon phantoms shattered as the claw struck the golden dragon ring's side. Long Yaotian's expression changed as he felt the backlash from the formation. He couldn't hold back a mouthful of blood and spat it out. His face turned pale, looking extremely weak. "How can it be this strong?" he muttered in shock. Chaos strength was far beyond his expectations. He had thought the formation might not kill Chaos, but at least it could trap him for a long time. He never expected that with just one blow, he would be on the verge of collapse. Chapter 372, The Mysterious Floating Island. After adjusting his internal injuries and briefly suppressing them, Long Yaotian once again activated the formation. The dim golden light around him surged once more. Chaos let out a sky-shaking roar, its massive wings spreading wide as it soared into the sky. It hovered above the heavens. In its abdomen, a deep, boundless black hole was spinning. Thunder and flame, powerful enough to annihilate everything, fused together and burst forth with terrifying momentum. This crimson and deep purple aurora destroyed everything in its path with unstoppable force. Space was obliterated, and time stood still. Thunder roared, and flames blazed. The moment the aurora struck the beast-sealing absolute radiance formation, the sound of burning echoed, puff, puff. The beast-sealing absolute radiance formation only resisted for a brief moment before it was completely obliterated. The dragon god in the sky let out a sorrowful cry and shattered into dust, drifting down. Long Yaotian spat out a large mouthful of blood again. His whole body was stiff, unable to move. This time, his injuries were too severe. Because the beast-sealing absolute radiance formation was broken too quickly, he didn't even have time to retreat. His god soul seemed to have been struck as well. Now, he couldn't move at all. If he did, his soul would shatter, and he would die with no remains left. Ants always dream of shaking the tree, yet they truly don't know how vast and boundless this world really is. Su Zimo walked forward and said calmly. Long Yaotian slightly opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but the moment he opened it, his expression froze. His entire body turned to ashes and drifted away. Su Zimo gently shook his head, stepped into the air, and headed toward the Dragon Clan. The Dragon residence, located at the center of the main street of Dragon City, was extremely luxurious. The entire estate covered hundreds of thousands of square meters. Its outer walls were built from the finest greenstone. But when Su Zimo arrived, it was already deserted. The grand and majestic buildings stood silently in the space. The entire mansion had been emptied in a short amount of time. In the courtyard, a few low-ranking servants were hiding in fear. "Where did the Dragon Clan go?" Su Zimo asked calmly. One of the servants instinctively looked toward the inner courtyard, then squatted down with his head in his arms. Su Zimo didn't speak again. He simply struck down the servant with a single slash. Then he headed to the backyard of the residence. This backyard was very hidden. Several bags of luggage had fallen on the ground, seemingly left behind in a rush. On the ground, there were many formation marks drawn with blue spirit force. Spatial teleportation array. Su Zimo frowned slightly. One end of the teleportation array had been deliberately destroyed. The spirit force on the array was faintly lingering but already unusable. Su Zimo let out a light chuckle and muttered, "Dragon Clan, we'll meet again someday." The Dragon Clan was not a simple clan. To be precise, the Dragon Clan in Dragon City was just a branch. The true main family was not on the eastern continent but located in the middle continent. The origin of the Dragon Clan could be traced back to the Imperial era. Naturally, their power was not this weak. Still, Dragon City was one of their key strategic locations. Now, thanks to Su Zimo's actions, the entire layout here had been destroyed. Su Zimo knew that there would inevitably be encounters in the future, but he didn't think too much about it. He left the Dragon Clan and headed with Chaos toward the Endless Sky Sea. The northern continent journey was about to begin. Previously, 90% of the business in Dragon Harbor was controlled by the Dragon Clan. But now that the family had vanished, new conflicts would surely arise here. However, that no longer concerned Su Zimo. The Endless Sky Sea was still the same. No one knew how many deaths and killings were buried beneath it. Just as he reached the coast, A ship was preparing to set sail. Su Zimo boarded it just in time. The ship was very large, shaped somewhat like a bow with a very sharp front. There were many people aboard. Su Zimo estimated around 1,000. In winter, the weather was unpredictable, and the sea surface was white. The ship picked up speed, cutting through the churning waves toward the great ocean and the distant northern continent. It's said that long ago, the primordial heartlands were once one whole landmass. Later, some mysterious force split it into 5 parts. From then on, a new era began. Most people's histories start from the 5 continents. To the far north lies the northern continent, a place most prosperous with non-human races. In an age where humans dominate and beasts follow closely, the survival space for other races naturally became more limited. This may not be very apparent in the eastern continent, as most non-human races have banded together and gathered in the northern continent, guarding the last lands where they can survive. This makes it a place different from, but no less exciting than, the eastern continent. The ship sped across the sea. The journey would take no more than 5 days. Su Zimo was in no rush. Chaos had entered the true fate world. Having just advanced to the arcane immortal realm, it needed to stabilize its cultivation and become more familiar with its new powers. That afternoon, after snow had fallen for many days, it finally stopped. The sky cleared up, and the soft sunlight spread like a thin layer of golden gauze. People aboard the ship came out to the deck for fresh air. The long snow had been quite oppressive. This ship to the northern continent didn't just transport people to the other shore. If lucky, it might encounter some floating islands along the way. When that happened, the ship would stop and let people explore. Speaking of these floating islands in the endless sky sea, there were many legends surrounding them. Whether they were true or not is debatable, so they didn't mean much. In the endless sky sea, countless islands float above the sea. Like the ships, they drift along their own mysterious paths. No one knows what these paths are, but the islands have existed since ancient times. On these islands, there may be inheritances, divine weapons, high-grade herbs, or ancient carvings and scrolls with unreadable scripts. Of course, it all depends on luck. If you're lucky, you might find something good. As the ship sailed across the calm sea, a golden triangular floating island appeared before everyone's eyes. The island spanned several thousand square meters, considered a medium-sized island. The moment Su Zimo saw it, images flashed in his mind. Even his heartbeat quickened. Chapter 373, A Person from the Last Epoch. Su Zimo's heartbeat quickened uncontrollably, and he suddenly felt uneasy. He looked at the triangular island. It felt familiar, but he couldn't recall where he had seen it. Was it in a dream? The island drew closer to the ship, and the passengers began to chatter among themselves. This ship was run by a power called the Ning clan. At this moment, the ship slowly stopped not far from the island. The ship's guards seemed to be awaiting orders from the captain. After a while, a fat man in a white sailor uniform swaggered out. He spoke loudly to the passengers inside the cabin. The captain allows everyone to explore the island. The ship will stay here for 3 days. Please make sure to return within that time. If you don't want to go ashore, you can rest in the cabin. But if you don't return in 3 days, we won't wait. Upon hearing that, everyone rushed out, flying toward the island. These floating islands often held opportunities, but they also came with danger. There were even rumors that entire islands had been wiped out before. But cultivation was always about seizing fate and going beyond the path of heaven. Everything depended on the word, strive. Su Zimo stepped into the air. For some reason, the island in front of him stirred up a lot of memories, but ones he couldn't clearly explain. It felt like something was missing, a key point that could link them all together. The island looked golden on the outside, its light blinding. But once people landed, they discovered it was filled with demonic energy. All the plants were tainted by it. This was a paradise for demons. Most of the vegetation on the island belonged to the dark element. You could land on the island from any direction. As Su Zimo broke through the void and landed, he noticed his heart beating even faster. Everyone else rushed into the interior of the island, afraid others would take the opportunities first. Su Zimo had only taken a few steps when someone suddenly shouted, "I found a weapon, an ancient divine weapon." He looked up and saw a man in a green robe not far away, picking up a dusty battle axe under a dark pine tree. The axe was originally petrified and full of cracks, but when the man dripped his blood on it, the stone surface began to fall away, and the axe released a surge of blood energy, intense and murderous. It was clearly a fierce weapon. Everyone nearby looked at him with envy, but no one tried to take it. Just as the man laughed proudly, black demonic energy surged from the axe. It formed a sinister face that instantly devoured him, down to the last speck. With a clanging sound, the axe dropped to the ground. Everyone quickly backed away, distancing themselves. "This island feels cursed. Maybe we should leave. Let's wait a bit longer. The bigger the risk, the greater the reward might be. Doesn't matter how great the reward is if you don't live to get it." People whispered among themselves. Some were hopeful, others were scared.
Su Zimo Frauen.
The axe felt very familiar, though he didn't know why. In any case, the entire island gave off an eerie vibe. He slowly stepped forward and picked up the axe, drawing surprised looks from others. Strangely, the demonic energy on the axe did not resist him. On the contrary, it seemed excited and respectful, like a lost believer meeting their god. The axe trembled slightly. Streams of faint demonic energy entered Su Zimo's body through his arm. At that moment, Su Zimo froze in place. Strange, fragmented visions began flashing before his eyes, familiar yet unknown. "We ancient demons are born forsaken by the heavens. We must break the hourglass of fate and fight the heavenly Tao to the end." The scenes looked like a war. The sky was blood red, and the ground was covered in cracks. Tens of thousands of beings fought in a massive battle. People were dying by the second. It was brutal, and the owner of the axe was just one among the countless warriors, an ordinary fighter in that bloody war. These broken, disjointed images flashed before Su Zimo's eyes. When he snapped back to reality, the axe in his hand had cracked. With a few cracking sounds, it shattered completely. At the same time, Su Zimo sensed a change in himself. He had previously fused with the hell-suppressing demon physique. At first, he merged with the battle physique pearl. From Paimon's words, this demon physique originally belonged with him. Setting aside what connection the current Su Zimo had with the Infernal Lord in this lifetime, the truth was, the demon physique had always felt somewhat foreign to him. It wasn't part of him. Only when he consciously activated it could he use its power. But now, after the demonic energy from the axe entered his body, he felt a closer bond with the demon physique. It was a small difference, but what if he absorbed more of this energy? Su Zimo had an idea. And more importantly, those visions just now, his instincts told him they were related to the Infernal Lord and the ancient demon race, which meant this island had something to do with demons. Driven by curiosity, Su Zimo continued forward. The deeper he went, the more signs of past battles he found. Many deep craters were scattered across the area. Though time had buried most traces, he still picked up a few broken weapons along the way. The demonic energy inside them was absorbed into him, deepening his bond with the demon physique. As he walked, a sudden, horrific scream echoed through the air. His eyes narrowed, and he dashed toward the sound. Passing through layers of trees and dense underbrush, Su Zimo finally saw the source. A filthy, ragged figure with long, matted hair was crouched over a corpse, gnawing on it. The body had died not long ago, likely someone from the same ship Su Zimo had taken. Hearing Su Zimo approach, the person suddenly raised their head. Su Zimo could finally see the face. The flesh on it had already rotted away. The eyes, nose, ears, and mouth were no longer even recognizable. Chapter 374, Infernal Lord Battle Robe. Rotten flesh hung from the monster's face, looking both horrific and disgusting. The blessed epic. It was destroyed in the end. Destroyed. Destroyed. This creature could no longer be called human. It was a monster. It grinned eerily at Su Zimo while muttering non-stop about the blessed epic. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The current epoch was known as the Light-Year Epoch. The so-called Blessed Epoch had long been the previous epoch. When that epoch was destroyed, all its information vanished with it. Nowadays, anything about the Blessed Epoch was vague and almost impossible to trace. He didn't understand what this thing had to do with that past epoch. But there was no time to think further. The monster charged at Su Zimo, its body radiating thick death energy. Yet when it attacked, Su Zimo didn't feel any trace of evil. Instead, it carried a grand and righteous aura. What is righteousness? It said that only those with open hearts, a sense of justice, and a clear conscience can summon this noble energy from the heavens and earth. It's hard to attain, but also simple. If your heart is in the right place, you'll naturally comprehend it. If not, no effort will help. Su Zimo couldn't understand. If this monster once had such righteous energy, it couldn't have been a truly evil person. So how had it ended up like this? He threw a punch. Boom! Both figures took a few steps back. Su Zimo felt numbness in his fist. The monster must have been quite powerful in life. The creature howled and charged again, its righteous aura surging toward the sky. The energy spread across the skies, purple clouds gathering from the east like huge waves crashing in. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. Creation energy spread around him. In that moment, he activated his hell-suppressing demon physique. He wanted to confirm something. Mighty demonic energy mixed with the power of creation. His skin became enveloped in thick black energy. Purple markings appeared across his face and neck, like some kind of cursed seal. His eyes turned cold, void of emotion. This overwhelming sense of power was intoxicating. Su Zimo clenched his fists slightly. The space around him shattered. The moment he activated the demon physique, the monster grew extremely agitated. Its righteous aura became chaotic and violent. Charged again. Su Zimo was fearless. He met it head-on with a punch. Boom! The monster was blasted away. Su Zimo then noticed that behind it, on a small mountain ridge, there was a cave made from stacked stones. The person killed earlier must have been trying to explore that cave when the monster attacked. As Su Zimo stepped toward the cave, the creature went berserk and rushed at him again, muttering in a low voice. The Blessed Epoch is destroyed. The catastrophe of the demon tide will come again. All beings will be unable to escape it. Hearing this, Su Zimo grew annoyed. He grabbed the monster by the collar of its tattered clothes and slammed it to the ground. Then he punched it again and again. Boom! 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 The ground cracked around him, the demonic energy in the air roaring wildly. After dozens of punches, he finally stopped. In front of him was an enormous crater. The monster's head had exploded like a watermelon, clearly dead beyond doubt. Su Zimo took a deep breath. In truth, this monster had probably been dead for a long time. Some kind of obsession had kept it going. Everything today was strange. The Infernal Lord seemed even more mysterious than he had imagined. After killing the monster, Su Zimo slowly walked into the cave behind the ridge. Inside, it was dry and well ventilated. Su Zimo remained alert for any danger, but he encountered none as he moved deeper. Above the cave were two skylight-like holes that let sunlight in. Inside was a dust-covered chest and a stone bed. It looked like someone had lived here long ago, though it was now buried in dust. Who knew how long this place had remained sealed with the island? On the cave wall there were words carved with a sword. Su Zimo looked up and read, "I am Taoist Qingfeng. As the demon tide approaches, I know my strength is small, but I still wish to set an example for the countless beings. Someone must stand tall to hold up the sky. After years of cultivation, it's time to do something for this world. I am leaving now, and today I leave my legacy behind. I only hope that those who come here after me will know, when the day of Demontide came, there was one named Taoist Qingfeng in the Demon Slayer Alliance." Reading the wall, Su Zimo sneered. In the end, most people still couldn't escape the desire for fame and legacy. He opened the chest on the ground. Inside were many books, records on cultivation systems from the Blessed Epoch, and texts introducing various regions of that epoch. Without thinking much, Su Zimo placed the entire chest into his True Fate world. Just as he was about to leave, his eyes landed on the stone bed. Gathering spirit force in his right hand, he shattered the bed with a punch. Crack! As the stone bed split apart, a crystal box was revealed inside. Su Zimo was surprised to find the crystal box was transparent, and inside it was a battle robe. The robe was lacquer black with golden trim and black and purple stripes. The high collar was embroidered with epical demonic seals. On it were fierce faces, each vivid and detailed. The inside of the robe was blood red, and on the back was a deep crimson throne. At the sight of the robe, Su Zimo's heart pounded wildly. He tried to suppress his unknown excitement and attempted to open the box, but it was sealed. No matter how hard he tried, even summoning Paimon and using his strongest attacks, he couldn't break the seal. "The Infernal Lord has found his battle robe," Paimon said with excitement. "You recognize this clothing?" Su Zimo asked. "I'll never forget that moment." Paimon quickly nodded, his tone filled with sincerity and respect. Chapter 375, Strange Island. The Great War had reached its final stage. Our Lord went alone to negotiate with those so-called righteous alliances on behalf of our ancient demon race. But we all knew you would never compromise. That day you left by yourself wearing your battle robe. Blood and fire raged behind you. You listened to the war song from the distant sky and stepped toward the edge of the heavens. Hearing Paimon's words, Su Zimo fell silent. This battle robe felt deeply familiar, as if it were something tied to his blood, like it had always belonged to him. He gently stroked the crystal box and asked, "Is there a way to open it?" "This seems to be a seal from the Blessed Epic. Such seals are unfamiliar to people of the Light-Year Epic," Paimon said thoughtfully. "Unless you find a shadow stone." "What's that?" Su Zimo asked. "A type of crystal that can unlock any seal in the world, but it can only be used once," Paimon explained. "Once it's used to undo a seal, it's useless. That makes it extremely rare." Su Zimo frowned slightly and put the crystal box with the robe away. He made a mental note to remember the shadow stone. He and Paimon left the cave. At that moment, Paimon looked around with a strange expression. "I feel like I've been here before," he murmured. "You've been here?" Su Zimo asked. "It feels familiar, but I can't recall anything clearly. Let's keep moving. Maybe I'm overthinking it." Paimon hid himself in the void, and Su Zimo continued walking along the ridge past the cave. The island was covered with dark element trees. After walking for quite a while, Su Zimo was certain this island was dead. He hadn't seen a single living creature. The trees were long dead, lifeless and dry, barely hanging on. He looked up. The sun above hung in the sky like a flat disk, casting soft light down. Up ahead, the sounds of battle broke the silence of the forest and caught his attention. He pushed through dead branches and bushes. A group of people were chasing and attacking a young woman. She seemed to be at the peak of the Paragon Meridian realm. Her attackers were mixed in strength, some at Desolate Meridian, some at Paragon Meridian. The woman was badly wounded, her white dress torn in many places by weapons. Sweat dripped from her forehead, soaking the hair by her ears. When she saw Su Zimo, her eyes lit up. She suddenly shouted, "Husband, come save me." At her words, some in the group turned their sharp gazes toward Su Zimo. Without hesitation, they charged at him with weapons, clearly preferring to kill the wrong person than let someone escape. Su Zimo frowned but didn't bother explaining. His sword, Shadow Tyrant, dropped from the sky, carrying the thunder of the void, and annihilated them. The ground cracked open, dust flying into the air. Seeing this scene, the remaining few were stunned. They turned and ran without a word. Su Zimo snorted. Shadow Tyrant slashed again. A blade aura erupted, cutting through layers of void and carving a massive rift through space. The crashing sound of the explosion echoed as the void collapsed. The fleeing men screamed briefly before being consumed by the blade energy. The woman stood frozen, watching Su Zimo walk toward her. She looked terrified, trying to compose herself. Then she smiled and said, "Sir, Please forgive my rudeness. In a moment of desperation, I blurted that out. If you want to punish me, I will accept it. Accept it, Su Zimo said with a smile, pinching her chin. How? I leave that to you, the woman said shyly, lowering her head with a red face, not daring to meet his gaze. Very well, Su Zimo nodded. Then he suddenly squeezed her chin with great force. As the woman screamed, the bones and flesh of her jaw were crushed into powder. Su Zimo grabbed her hair and slammed her head into the ground, smashing it like a balloon with a single punch. Pretty face, rotten soul. Su Zimo laughed softly as he looked at the body. The people chasing her must have believed she was carrying something valuable. Su Zimo searched her body and eventually found a key hidden inside her white dress. The key's material was unknown, wrapped in a faint black mist. Felt cold to the touch. Su Zimo didn't know what it was for, but he stored it in his ring. Continuing onward, he encountered all kinds of people along the way. Everyone was focused on seeking opportunity. No one bothered talking. As night fell, the island felt increasingly eerie. The dead trees around him looked like silent, howling monsters with clawing branches. It was deathly quiet. The island felt completely out of place with the rest of the world, as if time and space were separate, like he stood in an isolated dimension. Su Zimo chopped down the surrounding dead trees and built a fire. The winter night was freezing. He held his blade and leaned against a tree by the fire, closing his eyes to rest. Around midnight, a haunting song woke him. In the eerie darkness, the song sounded jarring, like a duet. A woman's voice full of rage, a man's voice full of sorrow. The sound came from all directions, impossible to locate. As Su Zimo listened, a carriage slowly approached from the distance. At the same time, the clouds blocking the moon drifted aside. Moonlight gently shone down. The carriage was ancient in style, covered with dark red curtains. The horse pulling it was strange. Su Zimo had never seen its kind. In front of the carriage sat a coachman in green robes, head lowered so his face was hidden. Around the carriage stood 4 figures in black, 2 on each side. They each held a basket, sprinkling shiny items along the path as they walked. Chapter 376, Blissful Nation. And those people were chanting, "River of the Yellow Springs, flowers on the other shore. The path through the underworld leads to nothingness. Alas, human bones, devoured flesh. In the sea of blood, someone has a home." These words came out like a children's rhyme. The shimmering items they scattered covered the path, glowing brightly in the night. Most importantly, the carriage seemed to be the center of everything. It was as if all the moonlight was focused on it. Wherever it moved, the moonlight followed. Su Zimo calmly watched the carriage roll forward. There is much suffering in the world. In the blissful nation, only peace awaits. Young master, would you like to enter our blissful nation? As the carriage stopped before him, the coachman suddenly raised his head and spoke to Su Zimo. His face was ghostly pale, without a hint of blood. He wore a sinister smile, but it looked more tragic than cheerful. What benefit is there to joining your blissful nation? Su Zimo asked calmly. Forget all your worldly troubles. From then on, you'll be free and unburdened forever. The coachman replied with a smile. But I don't see it that way. What makes us human are our emotions, joy, sorrow, anger, love. Without the bitterness of troubles, how can one appreciate the sweetness of happiness? Su Zimo asked, looking at him. Are you happy? Of course I'm happy, the coachman answered with a grin. And what makes you happy? Su Zimo continued. The coachman froze, unable to answer. Happy because there are no troubles? If you've never had troubles, how can you know what happiness is? Like the saying goes, if you've never seen light, how can you hate the darkness? The coachman lowered his head in thought, then gave a bitter laugh. He shook his head and said, I don't know what makes me happy, but I do know, if you don't enter the blissful nation, you'll die. Su Zimo laughed softly. He shook his head and said, a lot of people have told me something like that. Now, the grass on their graves is taller than you. The coachman laughed wildly. The black-robed figures carrying baskets around the carriage also let out eerie laughs. At that moment, boundless spirit force surged. The blood-red carriage turned into a sea of blood. Blood gushed from the carriage wildly, soaking the entire forest red. Su Zimo looked up to see that even the moon had turned crimson. The surrounding blood formed a long, flowing river. This blood river surged and encircled Su Zimo. Within it, laughter and music echoed. He looked around and saw what seemed to be a gathering of many people in the river. They were dancing, drinking, laughing. Scantily dressed dancers swayed seductively. "Welcome to the blissful nation," the coachman said with a smile. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes but didn't speak. "Go in and have a look. You might like it," the coachman added. "If you don't, you can leave at dawn." Su Zimo was silent for a moment, then followed the coachman. The entrance to the nation was a towering gate. Inside, Su Zimo saw it was divided into several areas. Some were filled with immortal energy. Others were lavish and indulgent. There were all kinds of scenes. A scantily dressed woman walked up to Su Zimo. Her alluring face lowered slightly. She said, "Does the guest have any desires or wishes? We can make them all come true. I want to visit the outer heavens. Can you do that?" Su Zimo asked calmly. "To see the world beyond the grand emperors." Hearing this, the woman smiled and pulled out a black bracelet. Without hesitation, she said, "Wear this, guest. It will show you what the outer heavens are, maybe even make you its ruler." "An illusory world, huh?" Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "Why worry so much about what's real and fake?" The woman replied with a smile. "Isn't reality full of illusion anyway?" Su Zimo nodded slightly and put the bracelet on his wrist. But the moment it touched his skin, crack, the bracelet shattered, pieces falling to the ground. Su Zimo frowned in confusion and turned around. The woman stood frozen, shock written all over her face. "What's going on?" Su Zimo asked with a frown. You've come," the woman stammered. "What do you mean?" Su Zimo asked. "Please wait. I'll report this to the master." The woman bowed slightly and rushed off. Su Zimo couldn't understand. Why had the black bracelet suddenly broken? After a while, the woman returned. This time, she was accompanied by a man in blue robes. The man also had a bloodless face, ghastly pale. His eyes were completely black, with no irises. He looked Su Zimo over. "My lord, it's him," the woman said to the blue-robed man. The magic bracelet shattered the moment it touched his aura. "What do you want?" Su Zimo asked. "Come with me," the man said after a pause. Su Zimo shrugged, not refusing. He still didn't know what this blissful nation truly was. Following the man through several pavilions, the deeper they went, the fewer people they saw. It became desolate, and the demonic energy in the air grew stronger. As they passed a corridor, its walls were covered in drawings of all kinds of demonic beasts. Some released overwhelming aura, others looked quiet but extremely sinister. After passing the corridor and a series of restricted areas, Su Zimo stopped in front of a teleportation array. It was filled with blood and demonic energy, so thick it became a liquid dripping from the formation. "Go in. Someone's waiting for you," the blue-robed man said, pointing at the array. "Who are you people?" Su Zimo asked with a frown. "You'll find out inside," the man answered sincerely. Su Zimo thought for a moment, then stepped into the array. Boom! Demonic energy surged all around. Dark flames ignited. A terrifying pressure descended from above. His vision shifted. He arrived in a new space. "I've been waiting for someone who should never appear. I've waited a very, very long time, and now he's here." Chapter 378, Trample the Heavens Underfoot. Thunder and lightning roared across the sky. Storms stirred the heavens. An immense aura gathered into one. The man slowly raised the halberd in his hand and charged toward the masses. "I have seen the origin of all things, and I have witnessed the end of it all. Beggars knowing their fate, nobles blessed by the heavens, scholars debating ink, warriors drinking wine. Someone's sword gleaming cold across the 9 realms, purple aura stretching 100,000 miles, beasts howling at the moon, devouring half the sky, and the collapse of worlds before the end of an era. But in the end, none escape birth, aging, sickness, and death, the cycle of karma. People come into this world naked and leave it just the same. My technique, Demon, is divided into 10 forms. Watch carefully. As his words fell, the halberd in his hand stirred the heavens. First form, Realm Demon. Those who glimpse illusions and see gods. His halberd burst forth with boundless demonic energy. The space around began to twist, layers folding over each other. The sound of cracking echoed around. The great era shifted and space bent in half. The people at the base of the corpse mountain were horrified to see. An exact mirror image of themselves had appeared before them, as if their reflections stepped out of the water. The space in front of them was split, and their counterparts stood on the other side, but disturbingly real. When they attacked, the reflections attacked too. Their strikes collided with deafening booms in the air. It was impossible to tell who had the upper hand. Su Zimo could see it clearly. This realm demon form was a space-based technique. It used the very nature of space to its fullest. Illusions became real, and reality became illusion. Second form, Plague Demon. Those afflicted by karmic disease. Blood energy surged from the halberd, turning into countless crimson threads. Each thread represented a form of karma. The threads surrounded those at the base of the mountain. Birth, aging, sickness, and death, inescapable ends for all life. In that moment, sickness overtook them, life drained away, death descended. Su Zimo was stunned. This plague demon form was even more ruthless. It ignored all defense and forcibly stripped away life. Third form, Terrestrial Demon, master of all disasters. With another sweep of the halberd, countless cracks appeared across the earth. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, hurricanes, landslides, mudslides, every natural disaster surged forth. The man had become the embodiment of disaster itself. He controlled them all. With a wave, calamites followed. Nature's wrath roared across the land. Su Zimo knew this was the might of heaven and earth. No mortal could stop it. To wield nature's fury, this was Earth Demon. At this point, the allied forces below had fallen into chaos. The man fought alone, growing more wounded, but he didn't care. Demon had 10 forms, and the man demonstrated each one. Su Zimo watched without blinking. Fourth form, Celestial Demon, one who challenges the heavens. Fifth form, Human Demon, one who silences all creation. Sixth form, Beast Demon, essence of trees, stones, birds, and beasts. Seventh form, Spectral Demon, one who disrupts minds in dreams. Eighth form, Sun Demon, loved ones who block the path. Ninth form, Ghost Demon, spirits and vengeful souls. 10th form, God Demon, one who brings the end of heaven and earth. As these forms were unleashed, the world turned upside down. Storms swept in from all directions. The sky collapsed, the ground cracked open, and all life faded. All beings were consumed, vanishing into nothingness. Yet the man kept going, tireless. It was unclear how long had passed, maybe moments, maybe centuries. Su Zimo watched the man's transformations. Blurry shadows formed before him. The man's figure shrank down, becoming a string of glowing characters. Those characters radiated intense, murderous energy. They joined together, forming chapters of a new scripture. The scripture rushed into Su Zimo's mind, branding itself into his memory. It glowed with a power that reached the heavens. Each form pointed directly to the truth of the Grand Tao, to the essence beyond. Su Zimo felt his consciousness sink into darkness. Within endless cycles, he practiced these techniques again and again, pursuing their true meaning to the very end. No one knew how long had passed, maybe just a moment, maybe several lifetimes. Su Zimo felt he had experienced countless different realms. He drifted for ages through the void. It seemed the man had passed his understanding to Su Zimo, his realms, his journey. Su Zimo's aura rose and fell, as if passing through endless cycles. When he finally opened his eyes, he found himself floating in total darkness. Suspended in midair, without direction or destination. He slowly stood up, his head heavy. Memories had been forcefully implanted in his mind. Memories of the battle technique called Demon. This technique didn't rely on mastery, it relied on comprehension. The deeper your understanding of each form's essence, the more powerful the result. Su Zimo looked up, setting the technique aside for now. Ahead of him stood the man in the battle robe, waiting calmly. "You're awake, Infernal Lord," the man said quietly. "Who are you really?" Su Zimo asked with a frown. "I am the Infernal Lord. And so are you," the man replied with a smile. "But strictly speaking, I am me and you are you. Though we bear the same title and the same fate, we are two completely different people. I don't want to become you. And I suppose you don't want to become me either." "I don't really get it," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "You've only confused me more." "You don't need to understand too much right now," the man said, shaking his head. "In time you'll see. There's no malice between us. You've received what I left behind for you. I only hope that your generation can truly overturn everything." As his words faded, the man's figure began to dissolve. "Infernal Lord, your fate awaits not far ahead. Break it. A cage can't imprison a bird whose every feather longs for freedom. The me from then, the you of now. We've all been striving generation after generation. So, how about we trample the heavens underfoot?" The man burst into laughter. His laugh echoed through the quiet darkness, sharp and piercing. Chapter 379, Lord of Bliss. As the man's figure gradually faded away, Su Zimo calmed his emotions. The endless darkness around him also began to retreat. His figure reappeared on the mountaintop outside the mural. The murals, crafted from some unknown material, had completely shattered into dust. A cool breeze blew atop the mountain, and the air carried a faint chill. Su Zimo stepped into the air, leaving the mountaintop behind. This experience had brought him great gains, but also a deeper understanding of the Infernal Lord. He didn't believe in fate. Since the start of the new epoch, he had been different from everyone else. His destiny had always been firmly in his own hands. The murals on the mountaintop seemed to be the core of that world. When they shattered, the entire space also began to fracture. Eventually, the world shook violently. With a sharp crack, the entire space shattered like a mirror. Su Zimo's body returned to the small gate where he had originally entered the teleportation array. The teleportation array before him also disappeared completely. Paimon stood nearby, waiting respectfully. "Where's Demon Slave?" Su Zimo asked. "That was only a remnant of his obsession. His true self died before the collapse of the last epoch," Paimon replied. "When this space shattered, his obsession naturally dissipated." "Exactly what kind of race is the ancient demon race?" Su Zimo asked softly, gazing at the blood moon above. "We are just fighting our own fate," Paimon said calmly. "But many want us to stay content with our current state, to accept the judgment of fate. It's laughable." Su Zimo didn't speak again and began retracing his steps. The blissful nation was now eerily quiet. In the corridor etched with demonic creatures, the blue-robed man who had led Su Zimo here now sat quietly at the railing, his figure blending into the surrounding blood mist. If one didn't look closely, it was hard to even see him. Soft footsteps echoed through the silent corridor. Su Zimo walked forward step by step and asked the blue-robed man, "Who are you? Name? It's been too long, I've almost forgotten." The man shook his head. "Just call me the Lord of Bliss." "What's your connection to the ancient demon race?" Su Zimo asked. "A promise. I made a promise to the Infernal Lord," the Lord of Bliss replied with a smile. "To find the new Genopoxian's Infernal Lord. That mission is now complete." "I want to know the purpose of the blissful nation," Su Zimo asked. If this man was from the same epoch as the previous Infernal Lord, Then the blissful nation must have originated in the blessed epoch. How had they survived the destruction of that epoch? To live in drunken dreams and forget the world, the Lord of Bliss replied with a smile. A group of people with no desire for worldly things, just wanting to enjoy the rest of their lives, not seeking martial supremacy or eternal life, but simply the meaning of living. And what is the origin of these islands? Su Zimo asked, confused. Countless islands floated on the endless sky sea. These had existed since long, long ago. Tracing their origin might lead back to the age of ancient myths, or even earlier, before the primordial heartlands had split into 5 parts. These floating islands had already existed then. The islands' origins were prehistoric and unsolvable, passed down like a mysterious fog. They all hinted at the island's extraordinary nature. But even now, no one had a definitive answer. Strictly speaking, these islands don't belong to the light-year epoch, the Lord of Bliss explained after a pause. Long ago, when the blessed epoch was destroyed, many remnants floated in the infinite void. Later, when the light-year epoch was established, many of those remnants drifted into the new epoch. That's what you call the floating islands. Remnants of the blessed epoch, Su Zimo murmured. The ancient epoch had long since been destroyed, along with all its information. If someone from that time hadn't told him this, no one would have connected it to the blessed epoch. All right, now that you've obtained what you came for, it's time for you to leave the blissful nation, the Lord of Bliss said, shaking his head. This place only welcomes those who wish to indulge in bliss. But you still have many journeys ahead. As he finished speaking, the blood-colored surroundings began to fade. The blood moon in the sky gradually lost its glow. The buildings around began to disappear, the palace, the corridors, and even the Lord of Bliss himself. All of it vanished, as if everything had been a dream. When Su Zimo came to his senses, he found himself standing in the small grove from before. The sky had cleared. Sunlight shone down on the island, the air warm and gentle. The remains of the campfire at his feet were still smoking. Su Zimo looked up slightly. The carriage from before brushed past him and rolled into the distance. The driver was still chanting, "Yellow Springs River, flower of the other shore. On the path of the underworld, all is empty." The melodious singing drifted farther and farther away until it vanished from sight. Su Zimo smiled faintly. This world really is getting more and more interesting. Just as he was thinking this, a deafening beast roar suddenly echoed from afar. The roar was savage, shaking the heavens and earth. The sheer force of it made the ground tremble. Su Zimo's gaze sharpened. He stepped into the air, leaping off the withered trees around him, flying toward the direction of the beast's roar. In the distance, waves of energy rippled through the air. Explosions rumbled. Trees collapsed, forming a vacuum zone in the forest. From afar, Su Zimo could barely see a massive figure howling toward the sky. He quickly moved toward it. When he arrived, he saw devastation everywhere. Dozens of mangled corpses lay on the ground. Craters covered the surroundings. At the center, a huge monster was roaring violently. Dozens of people were fighting it, trying to wear it down. Though Su Zimo couldn't determine the monster's realm, its strength was overwhelming. Each of its claws carried terrifying force. The people around it could barely survive a single blow. Su Zimo studied it carefully. He realized it was a creature he had never seen before. Neither in reality nor legend had there ever been such a beast. Its entire body was a dark purple-brown, and behind it stretched a pair of wings that could blot out the sky. Chapter 380, The Strange Bauhinia. The monster's entire body was covered in barbs. Moreover, it had 2 horns on its head and 1 on its nose, resembling a rhino's horn. Even more terrifying were the tusks on both sides of its mouth, which curved upward. They could almost be compared to the sharp horns on its head. From a distance, it looked like it had 5 horns. On its back and on the bent elbows of both arms, there were chunks that looked like deep purple crystals. The crystals were transparent and clear, seemingly containing an incredibly terrifying power. Its front claws were thick, powerful, and extremely sharp. Just looking at them was enough to strike fear into one's heart. Every time the monster attacked, its claws would tear through the space along their path. A boundless dark aura emanated from around its body. Black spirit force swirled around, surging through the surrounding space. The people fighting it at the moment seemed to be the ones who had once been on the same ship as Suzumo. Although they had the advantage in numbers, they were no match for this monster. With each attack from the monster, someone would be injured or even killed. "We should retreat. We are no match for this monster," someone shouted from the crowd. "At this rate, we'll all die here. We've already lost so many people. Now that it's come to this, are you really willing to just leave? Besides, the monster will tire eventually. We just need to hold on a bit longer." Someone else tried to persuade the crowd to stay. Suzumo stood atop a withered tree nearby, his feet on the upper branches. He looked down at the situation below. Leaving aside the battle for now, Suzumo noticed behind the monster, hidden under the cover of dense shrubs, a patch of flowers. The shrubs surrounded the flower bed, with green vines spreading upward, covering it. In the flower bed grew many mysterious herbs. Many of these herbs were unfamiliar to Suzumo, suggesting they were either extremely rare or already extinct. Among the cluster of flowers, one flower stood out. Judging by its appearance, Suzumo recognized it as a bauhinia. The flower stem was only about 20 centimeters long, covered in sharp barbs. It had 4 petals, each red-purple in color. But at this moment, a heavy aura of killing intent and demonic energy surrounded the flower. From the demonic energy came constant roars, screams, and wails. And on each petal grew a face, with nose, eyes, and mouth. Each face had a different expression. The 4 petals bore the expressions of joy, anger, sorrow, and resentment. Looking at the petals, Suzumo realized they were staring back at him. The expressions on the petals seemed to mock him. Each expression carried a different sense of intent. Before Suzumo could get a closer look, the people below noticed him. "Friend, lend us a hand. There's strength in numbers," someone shouted from below. "Kill this monster and we'll split the treasure evenly." Hearing that, Suzumo remained still where he was. He smiled and said, "I'm just passing by. The treasure belongs to whoever fate chooses." With that, Suzumo backed away. Once his figure disappeared from sight, the others below seemed to relax. After all, no one liked someone standing by watching during a life-or-death battle. "Did you see clearly?" After reaching a deserted area, Suzumo summoned Paimon and asked. "That monster is a violet heart flamefire beast," Paimon replied. "A creature from the blessed epoch. They were supposed to have gone extinct when that epoch ended. I didn't expect to see one in this new epoch." "And that flower?" Suzumo continued. "Never seen it. The aura on it is very strange." Paimon shook his head. "This is getting interesting," Suzumo chuckled. He said, "A creature thought extinct reappears. It seems this island holds many secrets." "Does my lord want that flower?" Paimon asked. "If fate wills it, then it's mine." "I think that flower is meant for me," Suzumo replied. "Then why just now?" Paimon asked in confusion. Suzumo clearly had the chance to kill those people and the Violet Heart Flamefire beast and claim the strange bauhinia. But instead he walked away. "What if the flower is dangerous?" Suzumo replied. "There should always be someone willing to act as a test subject." "My lord means?" Paimon seemed to realize something. "Go kill the Violet Heart Flamefire beast. Don't concern yourself with anything else," Suzumo said calmly. "Let those people fight for it themselves." "I understand," Paimon nodded slightly. Dark energy surged around him as he stepped into the air, flying off into the distance. Suzumo remained high in the sky, gazing in the direction of the beast, watching everything unfold. By now, the people in the battle were clearly at their limit, unable to hold out much longer. "I told you we should have left earlier, but you all were greedy for treasure," someone complained. "Are we really going to die here today?" Just as everyone was falling into despair, A stream of demonic energy shot over from the distance. It struck heavily on the back of the Violet Heart Flamefire beast. The monster let out a painful roar and looked up at the sky in anger. There, Paimon stood in the sky, overlooking it from above. Sensing Paimon's aura, the Violet Heart Flamefire beast began to tremble slightly. Its primal instincts told it to be afraid. It had the feeling that the figure above was extremely dangerous. It wanted to escape, but overwhelming Tao force surged from the horizon. The Tao force exploded, shaking the entire space. It descended directly upon the beast. The Violet Heart Flamefire beast lowered its body, not even daring to think of resisting. Paimon snorted coldly, merging demonic energy and flame into one. It formed a demonic blade. The blade cut through the void, shattering space. It flew across time itself. The people below only saw a flash of black light and didn't even have time to react. The Violet Heart Flamefire beast was split in two from the tip of its horn. Its massive body was sliced down the middle. Black blood gushed out, filling the area with a foul stench. Seeing this, Paimon let out a low snort. Then his black robe swept around, and his figure vanished into the horizon without a trace. Everything had happened too quickly. The people watching below still had stunned expressions. Frozen in place, staring at the dead monster and the lingering demonic energy in the air. They didn't know what to do. Is that monster dead? After a long while, someone finally asked in a low voice.